Hi everyone, welcome back to Cardvoyant. I'm Kris and I'm your Cardvoyant, and I'm back here today to do another 3-card reading, just kind of a general reading. I do want to say thank you to all of those of you who have subscribed recently. Thank you for being here, and hopefully you'll find all of this interesting. Also, I'd like to say to those of you who have been so nice in your comments about Jacob's journal. I really enjoy doing that. It's been kind of exciting for me to be able to do that. So thank you for those of you who are interested in that. Today I will be just sort of asking, in general, what do we need to know? What would help us to know? What would it be good for us to know? I don't want to go on too much longer than that. I did have one comment last time that said too much blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, yeah, that's probably true. It probably could be the title of my autobiography, Too Much Blah, Blah, Blah. But I do want to say that in general, I have been doing these past few, like very short 1-card and now 3-card readings. It's just to sort of get us through these times. Like, what do we need to know? What would it help us to know? What would be good for us to know so that we can have a better handle on things and, in our personal lives, sort of get through these things in a better way, and more positive way, and more productive way. So let me go ahead and shuffle, and I will ask those questions. And hopefully we'll have a reading that is meaningful. I'm going to go ahead and tilt this down so that you can see as I shuffle, and even though I'll cut most of it out, you'll kind of see what's going on. So I know I said a 3-card reading, but as often happens, because I don't use traditional spreads, and I just go with what I feel. And I came into this thinking 3-card reading, but even before I did this one, before I started the video, I felt like 4. I felt like it should, but then I thought, no, I'm doing a 3-card reading, but it was pretty clear. So I went ahead and did the 4-card reading as requested. And it's interesting. The cards are really interesting, and they're very good, and we'll obviously talk about them. But I will say, in the past few days, in the past maybe 3 days, I've had this real feeling of a shift in energy, and taking my time because I don't want to get emotional. And I couldn't put my finger on what that shift was exactly. And I still, we'll go through this and we'll see. But it's just, I just kept thinking something's changed. Something's changed. What is it? And we get this top card. Now, when I get a top card like this, and often, in readings, you'll get like a pyramid shape, or I will anyway, with a card or 2 at the top. And I always feel like the energy from that card sort of bleeds down or rains down or weeps down or flows down onto the cards below it, right? Because it's this sort of biggest part of the message that affects all the other cards. And here we have this 8 of Swords. Now, the 8 of Swords is, to me, it's often a really good card in readings in that it has much to tell us, right? Now, swords are all about our minds, our intellect, the ways that we use our physical minds. And swords, they're double-edged, so they can cut both ways. They can cut through things. They can cut things out. They can help us by cutting things out. They can also sort of wound us in various ways. And When we have several sword cards where the swords are pointing up, and when that happens, that generally talks about this merging of the physical and spiritual. And then we have them pointing down too, and this often talks about more earthly things. Um, they tend to be more difficult cards when they're pointing down like this, but they also can be instructive and even guide us when they're pointing down like this, when they form some sort of structure. And here we have this female figure surrounded, seemingly surrounded by these swords, and she's bound and she's blindfolded. The good news here is that much of this is an illusion, right? So let's go at it from this way. This is very clearly talking about these things that we consider feminine. We call many things boats, countries, land, mountains. You know, we refer to them in the feminine, right? Mother Earth, right? All these feminine things. And we also speak of Lady Liberty. So many things that are these essential parts of us and our structures, societal structures and so forth, are in these feminine terms. And this is what we have here. This representation of liberty, country, society, all of these things, and the ways in which we feel bound and blindfolded now, blindsided now, and the things that are constraining us, right, represented by these swords all around this figure, this Lady Liberty, Lady Freedom figure. The sort of positive note here is, as you can see, she stands with her foot, even one foot completely in the water. And the water is always indicative of the psychic, the internal, the eternal, the intuitive, right? All these parts of ourselves that are the deepest soul parts of ourselves that sometimes get lost in the physical world. She stands here because she's so connected. And if she will trust in that part of herself, she could sort of shake off. You can see these bindings are loose. She could sort of, just by mere movement, begin to loosen them even more and then remove her blindfold and see that these structures that seem so strong and so deadly, these swords that seemingly surround her, actually do not cage her in. She can walk forward. She can turn around and walk out. There's a pathway out that leads her up this hill, and this is not a hill of difficulty. This is a hill of advancement, right, to this sort of castle, this higher place, this more beautiful place of being. If it's not clear just in that explanation, I mean, this is what we're going through right now. We're feeling so constrained. We're feeling as if things are being done to us, just like this figure in this card, and we have so few options. I mean, even the protests in the street have been met with these swords, right? These symbolic swords of constraint and literally trying to sort of cut us off from that ability to express ourselves and demand the things that make us freer and more equal and happier and a better place to be. And yet there's such possibility here, and that's the good news. And as we go through these other cards, that's the important thing to remember, that we have the ability to cast off these bindings, these shackles, if you will, this blindfold, and see the truth of the situation and turn and march forward toward a better, brighter, more just, more equal, kinder, gentler, happier future. Okay. So then you get this next row of cards, and what can you say about a row of cards that starts with the Tower card? The Tower card is just what it looks like. It's always a card marked with difficulty and challenges. I often get it like when people are in the midst of a challenge when I'm reading for them, or have just overcome something. It's not often predictive, like, oh, your life's going to fall apart. It's more recognizing that something has happened. But in this instance, we are talking not about the future, but what we are in the midst of. And I think that's the change in this energy. We always have choices. Everybody always has choices. There's free will, right? And there's probabilities and there's possibilities. And when psychics and tarot readers and people, anybody who does this kind of work, they sort of look at the future, what I feel like they're really seeing is probabilities. And, sometimes they're very, very strong probabilities. And then, we'll say, oh, the psychic's message came true. But there's also the chance that another probability, another road will be taken. And I feel like in the midst of this, there were a lot of probabilities, a lot of things that could have happened. There are a lot of ways that some of the difficulties, some of this tower card, some of this destruction that's happening in this tower card didn't have to play out in the way that they're now beginning to play out. That will benefit us in some ways. That is taking us into a deeply troubling time. I think that the good news in this kind of thing is this, one of the topplings that I feel. Do you see the crown here at the top? This crown of greater importance, of greater ability to affect our lives has come off and is crashing to the earth. And I feel like, I feel about political things, but this feels like Donald Trump. I mean, he is experiencing a fall of great proportions. I mean, he is in free fall right now, right? This is a destructive course that he has chosen, right? As I said, we're talking about probabilities here. This didn't have to happen, but he has set himself on this course. The issue for us is that in the course of this fall, in the course of this destruction, we are part of it, whether we want to be or not. We're caught in the midst of his downfall, his free fall, and his destructive mode. And I feel like we're heading into a very difficult couple of months. It's funny because it feels really tower-ish, right? This tower card, this very difficult, destructive time, but it does not feel long. At least the deepest, most harrowing part of it doesn't feel long. The summer, that's what it feels like to me. It's like the summer of destruction in a way. The summer of, I think someday they'll have a name for it. I think they'll call it the summer of something. It's because it's just, there's a lot left to happen to bring this tower down. And that includes so many things. It's not just this administration, although that's the very big part of it for us in this country, because it's not just Trump. It is this administration. It's wide. It cuts a swath, as the sword cards up here, as we sort of loosen those sword cards, those 8 swords out of the ground. They do some real cutting for us. I mean, they really cut out some things. They cut a swath through all of this difficult, destructive time that we've had to our country, to our Constitution. And they're laying things bare that we have needed to see lay bare for a long time, but it's come in the guise of Trump and this administration, and it's all going to be cut away and cut out. Now, that may take some time, but the destruction of it, the fall of it, the cascading part that cannot be stopped, the momentum behind it cannot be stopped, starts now, has started. Is this taking place this summer? The catastrophic sort of death count associated with this illness is part of it. The social upheaval is part of it. The recognition of people, many people, for who they truly are and what they truly believe is being brought into the light. There's these many components. the power structure of the planet is being shifted, and I'm talking about governments and countries, and there's a balancing that's taking place and a sort of a reckoning, and we're a part of that. The United States is a part of that, other countries as well, obviously, but you know, the sort of the bigger you are, the harder you fall. It's a case of that in this, you can see in this Tower card, and it's true for Donald Trump individually, for the administration larger, for our country as a governmental force in large part. So it's a difficult summer. And again, it didn't have to play out this way. It absolutely didn't have to play out this way. And that's not just the fault of Donald Trump. There are so many people that could have done things differently, could have taken different stands. I mean, many, many people. And they sort of fell into this this sort of trap, or just this path that they just didn't get off of, even though they could have at any time. And if many people had done that, it could have changed so many things. But as it is, we have sort of shifted into this definite probability, or more definite probability. If you say probability, I guess it's not completely definite, but this more definite probability. When we had sort of many doors open for us before, we've now sort of shifted into more of this Tower card mode. The good news in that, and there is good news, because it comes in this lovely Ten of Pentacles card. And remember, I know we tend to think Pentacles is money, but this is all things physical. This is our world. This is our homes. This is our families. This is our society. And you can see here the 10, these 10 cards are always fulfillment cards. So it talks, you know, you can see the male and female figure, the sort of grandparent figure here, the child, these white dogs that always symbolize purity, pure intention, and hope. And this 10 card comes after the Tower card, talking about the things that we will have gained, the things that are possible after this this sort of summer of our discontent and of destruction, right? We are closer. We will grow closer in our families, in our homes, as a society. We will understand better the things that we want to build in this world. This is talking about our physical world, the things that we want to build and sustain and that we care about. So and this talks about that actual rebuilding process, right? This isn't just like, oh, you know, I realize now that my family is really important. It's actually structurally, Pentacles card, physical things, changing the way that we work. That may mean that more of us continue to work at home, spend more time in our families, with our families. Schools are more mindful of their role. We're more mindful of and I don't mean that the schools have to change. Society has to understand what we want and expect from our schools, what we want and expect and value in our schools, and the people who teach our children. And it's true in all of our justice systems, and the people who administer justice and who protect and serve us in many different ways. This isn't just police. This is all those service sort of oriented jobs and structures, like, you know, like healthcare, or caring for the poor, or welfare. I mean, all of these things we have seen where the value lies in them, and how people are not being served and how they are being served. And so it's not just a matter of recognition. I mean, if it was just a matter of recognition, we might get a Wands card or a Sword card, but we've got a Pentacles card, because it's talking about the ways that we, after this Tower situation, rebuild our society to better reflect the things that we now better understand, and to bring us to this Ten of Pentacles point, when we have all of the benefits of these things that we've learned. And this is over time, but it's almost like, this is what it feels to me like, this summer of just almost like chaos, right? All of these different things happening, and I'm not talking about there's riots in the streets all the time. It's just that there's so many different things that happen, and simultaneously, right? Like maybe there are some riots, maybe there are and protests, I should say, too, but both. Maybe there are some sort of natural disaster kind of things. Maybe the pandemic continues. There's this sort of crisis of leadership. So all of these things happen. So it is chaotic, not actually happening every day, and where we lose it. It's just that it is chaotic, and it is difficult, and it is literally this tower situation. So it feels like that from the summer. And then it feels like there's just a stop. Like everyone's like, a stop. That may have to do with Donald Trump. I would say the election, but honestly, it feels like it happens before that. And this may have to do with somehow treating a pandemic, or coming up with some answers, or some sort of information coming out, but it just feels like it's just chaos, and then stop. And that's when we take a breath. And that's when we start to see things start to reformulate, reform, just change. It's like crossing over a line into sort of a new beginning. This is not a short process to have all of these things happen. I mean, I don't feel like everything will sort of come to fruition in my lifetime, but much of it does. And some fundamental sort of bigger parts do happen right away, but these big structural things. And as I said, there's also part of this is a big sort of a power shift and dynamic shift, and even expectation shift among countries and governments. So this 10 card is very hopeful. It's a sweet and reassuring and wonderful message to receive, and it comes under the Sword card, directly under this 8 of Sword card. So we get this idea that this is what we step forward into when we sort of loosen those things that bind us, right? And realize really that this power, this psychic power, this inner power lies truly within us, right? We're looking inward, all of us collectively, and bringing that power out into the open. And we eventually receive this 10 of Pentacles moment and long existence, right? This long period of 10 of Pentacles life, which never has to change if we don't want it to. We can move toward this and live in it. And then finally, interestingly, you get this 2 of Cups. And this card, this is like, if people are asking me about romances or their relationships, this is the card you want. You want this card or the Lover's card. But this 2 of Cups, you see the male and the female figures here with their cups, which always speak of love and relationships and feelings and caring and all these things. And they're not only are they holding their cups, but they seem to be in the process of sort of exchanging them, exchanging them, taking maybe a drink from each one. Above it, you have this winged lion talking about not only sort of the blessing of this scene, but also in a way the fiery energy of it, the determination, the strength of it, right? And then interestingly, you get this the intertwined snakes below it, which they have many meanings, but what I want to bring out here is, because this is what I feel with this card, is it does have this look of the medical insignia, which has a name, but I can't remember. But if I do, I'll put it up, and Holly can look it up and put it up on the video. It has that look to it. I mean, you look at it and you can just kind of see it. And I want to say that this is speaking directly, because so many of us worry about it, obviously. This is talking about the pandemic, about COVID-19, and the ways in which it is tamed, because it is eventually. And I will say too that some of the things that we learn through this, through treatment and eventually vaccine and cure, is what I'm hearing also, benefit us in many other ways, and in dealing with future viruses of not only this nature but um, of other kinds. I guess I don't know enough about medicine to know all of these kinds of things, or biology or anything like that, but somehow benefits us in dealing with viruses in general, or of this kind, but maybe in general. But it does help with it, and that's why we get this. It's almost a promise. But the biggest part of this is this idea of going forward with love, with promise, and with this beautiful love for each other. It's a balancing here. Look how balanced these two figures are. I mean, they not only is there's this shared love and respect, but there's a true balance in everything about this card, from the two snakes to the wings, to the two figures, to the cups, and that's what we're moving into. And it's been a long time coming. But it's talking about, and I've talked about this in many of the readings that I give, and I've gotten this information from my Jacob's guides. They talk so much about balance and justice as balance, and noting continually that what justice and balance are is actually love, sort of love fulfilled. And that's why this is a cup card, and that's why there's this perfect balance in this card. Because as we come out of this tower, as we move into the Ten of Pentacles, and as we look toward the future, this is ultimately not only what we want, but what we can achieve. This mutual respect for each other, this recognizing self in others, right? This balance, this justice in everything, in every way that we proceed through life, in our societies, in our governments, in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools. This has to be meted out everywhere. And this is the potential that this card speaks of. Again, this is a long process, and this very beginning of it, this tower part of it, is very difficult, right? I mean, we're all going through it. We know how difficult it is, but it's not only necessary, it gives us the momentum and the impetus to move into these bigger, brighter, better things, better days, better societies, better connections. That's a big part of this, better connection with the spiritual realm, that will then help us to grow and fulfill the things that we want to do when we come into a physical life. Right now, with the density of so many difficulties, and it has been this way for decades and decades and decades, hundreds of years, coming into the physical world, we often get just caught up in it's almost like sort of immature things, the immaturity of the world, and we often lose sight of these bigger things that we want to do. And we incarnate again and again, but we've been in this cycle for sort of hundreds of years, and we're sort of this is the beginning of coming out of that, where we lift some of the denseness of that surrounds the earth, and as we do that, our vibration rises, and we're better able to connect, to feel that connection, even when we're in physical form, and it allows us to grow and experience and sort of bring forward things in a much in an exponentially better, faster, sort of more beautiful way, and accomplish these things that we want to do as individuals and as a part of the whole. So there you have it, 4 little cards, and we got kind of carried away with all of the these bigger topics. But that's what happens when when you do some of these readings that are asking these big questions, especially when I'm just asking, what do we need to know? Tell us what we need to know. And it's kind of like, well, I'll tell you what you need to know. There's a lot going on. I could probably go on for hours, do more, more cards and so forth. But I hope that this was helpful to me, because like I said, I've sort of been waiting to ask these questions, and yet feeling that something had shifted, something had changed. And so we sort of got those answers, and they're difficult answers, but they're, very, very hopeful answers. So I hope this is helpful to you. I hope that it resonated with you. Thank you for bearing with me and being interested in this, because I feel like it's obviously, this is a difficult time, and they're important times, and we're all here for a reason in these important times. So hopefully this is helpful. I will say that I finally got posted on my website the latest Jacob's Journal, Jacob Journal entries in written form on my website, cardvoyant.com, which is also where you can book a private reading if you want to. If you have questions or things, comments, or anything, I'd love to read the comments. I'm a little bit behind in answering, because I do like to answer the comments, especially when people are so thoughtful and kind to write the comments. So I do try and answer them, but I have read them. I read them, I get notifications. So as soon as they come up, I read them. So thank you for commenting. If there are things that you want to know about tarot, or any kind of other suggestions or thought or ideas, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I've read for many of you, and I know how many of you are also very intuitive. You have very knowledgeable feelings about what's going on, and very specific ideas that are wonderful to read for all of us to kind of share. So I welcome that. So again, I appreciate you watching. I'll have more for you soon, hopefully. And I'll just say until next time, until our next video, until I speak to you in person. Take care of yourself, and please take care of others. And bye for now.